Hi, and thank you for joining Digital Guardian and Redner's Markets to learn about the decision to leverage Savant protection, now Digital Guardian application whitelisting to secure their collection of stores by enforcing what applications can and cannot run on their POS terminals. Just a quick FYI, you may hear us using Savant protection and Digital Guardian application whitelisting interchangeably. Digital Guardian acquired Savant protection about 6 months ago. I'm Ann Scholl from Digital Guardian's marketing team, and I'm joined by Eric Moody from Redner's Markets and Bill Bradley from Digital Guardian. Bill will be walking you through Redner's Markets story, highlighting their journey from initial application whitelisting rollout, the challenges they faced with it, their reevaluation process, and subsequent deployment of Savant, and finally, the benefits seen from the solution. Eric is here to address questions around their project, and we'll be handling them both during the session and at the end to ensure we give participants ample time to ask their questions. With that, you can see the agenda here, which I just walked through. The slides will be provided to all registrants in a few days after the webinar, along with a transcript following that. And now we're going to see just a couple of polling questions to get people engaged. We'd like to throw out our first polling question that you can see here by clicking on the Votes tab. It should pop up. There we go. And the question is, how do you see application whitelisting in AV? Either it's complementary to AV, competitive to AV, or solving a unique problem beyond AV. Going to see if we get a couple of votes in here. Or maybe people need to get kick-started with some more coffee. Let's take a look. And 4 votes. Let's view the results. Great. Thank you for participating. Okay. To get started, a little bit of background about the champion in Redner's Markets, Eric Moody. Eric's official title is POS Systems Data Security Manager, which means he is responsible for ensuring the customers who frequent Redner's can be assured that when they swipe their cards at the end of each transaction, the data is being entrusted to a secure company. He must balance that security with the transaction speed the customers desire. Of course, no one wants to wait in a long line at a grocery store. Non-cash payments are expanding. There were over 300 billion globally in 2014, and customers are increasingly choosing the conveniences of this payment method. With this stage, Eric has the task of keeping those transactions safe and has the framework of the PCI DSS to guide his efforts. Eric is GIAC Security Essential Certified, a PCI professional, and PCI Internal Security Assessor. He's also a 26-year veteran at Redner's Markets. Bill Bradley is Director of Product Marketing here at Digital Guardian. He has over 15 years of technology marketing and sales experience, including field sales, competitive analysis, and product positioning and messaging. Prior to Digital Guardian, Bill was at Rapid7 and the General Electric Corporation. And now it is my pleasure to hand it over to Bill.
All right. Thank you, Ann. I'm going to get started by giving you a little bit of background about Redner's Market and understand who we're talking with today. So Redner's Market maintains over 60 unique locations in Maryland, Delaware, and Pennsylvania. These stores are a mix of larger warehouse-style grocery stores and smaller convenience stores. To manage all operations, both in the public eye and behind the scenes, Redner's employs over 5,000 employees. In those stores and used by those employees are the critical POS terminals that process credit card transactions. Redner's has over 700 of them protected with Digital Guardian app whitelisting. Redner's has been a Savant customer since 2008. As mentioned, the POS infrastructure is the lifeblood of a retail industry. Delivering a reliable and secure POS environment is a challenge to all retailers. This really was the top priority for Redner's. There is no smoking gun of a POS breach or targeted attack, just a proactive step by the Redner's team. Customers have a choice where they can shop, and trust that is hard to earn but can easily be lost. Redner's need to keep these terminals secure to do their part to maintain customer trust. Redner's, like all credit card processing organizations, are held accountable to the payment card industry data security standards and had this near the top of their list, but felt that their security posture would be a key driver towards compliance versus compliance leading to their security. Redner's already had an app whitelisting solution deployed. It was supplied as an embedded solution by their POS vendor, though the architecture simply didn't scale well enough across the multiple store locations, as there's no way to manage all devices from a single location. This meant either Eric or another from the InfoSec team went to the store, or had to rely on someone in the stores there to assist them. Redner's had also gone through several variants of antivirus on the terminals to secure them, but each ended up causing delays at the terminals. These POS terminals were experiencing a 1 to 2 second delay per item scanned at the checkout. While that may not seem like a lot, it adds up when you have customers in lines, and they are not happy when those lines don't move. Scan times are important to retailers because it is important to their customers. Most retailers have the ability to measure that performance, and Redner's was seeing that impact on checkout times and needed a way to speed it up without sacrificing security by simply turning their AV to a lower sensitivity. The final piece of the puzzle for Redner's was to ensure that whatever solution was implemented, while security was clearly paramount, the management overhead could not put undue pressure on the team and cause problems elsewhere. Grocery stores are highly competitive. Being able to run lean yet efficiently helps Redner's provide the best experience to their customers. Anything that may put that in jeopardy was likely a non-starter. With these challenges in the environment causing Eric some headaches, it was time to decide how to resolve. App Whitelisting, as I mentioned, had already successfully navigated the political challenge that can sometimes submarine app whitelisting projects, and Eric was pleased with the results, such that he wanted to maintain the solution, though he needed something that was a bit more robust to resolve the management challenges. His initial step was to outline what the ideal solution needed to do, and then started looking for vendors to evaluate. Luckily for him, the second part of this task turned out to be very easy. His initial scope was the POS terminal environment, now over 700 of them at multiple store locations, with the flexibility to add more terminals easily if they were to acquire more stores or expand to add more retail locations. Beyond this initial rollout was the ongoing support for these terminals, including the periodic software updates that are required to maintain both security and compliance of those POS terminals. This leads into the larger story of management, including exception handling, updates to the whitelist, and how the terminals fail over if they cannot reach the central server for some reason. Again, as I mentioned, all these terminals fall under the PCI DSS umbrella. Thus, any solution must help Redner's achieve compliance directly or support the organization's overall security and compliance strategy. Once Eric had a good idea of the high-level needs, including the fixes over the current solution, he started to research vendors. One of the first vendors he found was Savant Protection. He was previously unfamiliar with them, but reached out to Savant to download the software for an evaluation after a demo from the Savant rep. The evaluation gave him a feel for both the local GUI and the centralized management console. This flexibility was one of the key benefits. He could manage the terminals all from his office, but there was also the ability to make changes at the endpoint if needed. Sometimes he would have people out in the stores, and when they're there, the local GUI allows for immediate reconnaissance and resolution without a callback to the corporate headquarters. Next, the whitelist lives on the endpoint itself. Thus, if the connection to the central management console is lost for any reason, the POS terminals are still protected. The Digital Guardian dashboard was simple to use. This made getting the most out of the software easy. Eric was able to get up and running on it in a short order without the excessive complexity some of the other vendors' consoles had that he'd evaluated. The addition of the Digital Guardian app whitelisting solution allowed Eric to optimize their existing antivirus software to eliminate the previous delays at the POS terminal, speeding the checkout lines, something all Redner's customers appreciate. Once Redner's made the decision to deploy Digital Guardian throughout the enterprise, they took a stepwise approach given the challenges with previous app whitelisting solutions and not wanting to cause any negative impact on the POS terminals in the stores. Some would have called the approach conservative, but Redner's just wanted to minimize any customer pain, and Eric wanted to minimize any InfoSec pain, which would prevent any senior leadership pain back to him. Step one was for Redner's to install it in a lab environment and give the InfoSec team time to play around with it, find out how it works, and as with anything, break it in a safe environment so that when it is out in the real world, Redners would know how it works, know any limits, and more importantly, how to resolve any challenges. They then secured a machine with Savant and tried to execute a host of processes on the POS terminals to verify the systems were in fact locking down as desired. Once these lab tests were complete, Eric moved to a single install out in the production POS network. No matter how much lab testing is done, Redners felt the need to move cautiously given the need to have their POS terminals online as close to 100% of the time as possible. With a single endpoint test successful, Redner fully deployed Savant into one store, again watching for issues. Once again, no issue surfaced, and then Eric proceeded to install Savant onto all POS terminals in their warehouse stores. The support team was always available and responded quickly to any questions or problems during the deployment process. The number of Redner's POS machines has grown over the years, and Redner's has kept up with the latest releases offered over the time on all those terminals, which can easily be done by that centralized management console. The final element that helped speed adoption of the app whitelisting solution was the invisible deployment to the users. There was no real training required, further preventing any user challenges or slowing down the deployment. Overall, Redner's has been very pleased with the Digital Guardian deployment and has grown the number of POS terminals to over 700 currently running the app whitelisting solution. The management console gives Eric visibility into POS terminal status too. He can see when a terminal was last online and view other POS network events such as application installs being blocked, and can determine if that install attempt was a high-risk event or a sign that perhaps additional user education may be needed. Using Digital Guardian, Redner's was able to block application installs or executions from the USB port, something that many POS terminals have and is often used for peripherals such as handheld scanners for larger items or for the software installs or updates that can often be exploited given these terminals being left outside of the direct surveillance that a core network device would have. People can try to insert a malware-infected USB into the POS terminal, similar to the Stuxnet attack, or perhaps less sexy and spy-esque is someone inserting a USB with iTunes into the POS. Clearly, an internet worm like Stuxnet is a more serious event, but Redner's just blocks all applications trying to execute through that USB in the name of security. Here's a comment from Eric received during one of the recent PCI audits. The qualified security assessor has found Digital Guardian to be a valuable tool for satisfying the file integrity monitoring as well as the antivirus monitoring PCI requirements. File integrity monitoring falls under one of the more difficult requirement categories in PCI to achieve and maintain compliance. The most recent Verizon PCI report found this to be the lowest in terms of compliance, with only 1 in 3 companies passing the broader category during their interim audits, and the only category that showed a decrease since the previous report, dropping from 40% in the 2014 report down to 33% in the most recent report. And AV, as we know, can be a necessary evil, but has shown decreasing returns given the adaptability of attackers to make signature-based tools less effective. Having an app whitelisting solution that complements AV gave Redner's further security. Redner's uses several tools to facilitate software updates to the machines out in the field. Sometimes these can create temporary DLL files or other artifacts or other executables that are out there during the update process. Using the trusted installer in Savant, Redner's can assign these applications a trusted status to allow them to modify files and execute processes as part of the update while still enforcing the whitelist. Next, integration with logging tools. Redner's uses logarithms to collect events from multiple sources. Savant tied into this, easily allowing Redner's more visibility on that single console to further leverage that investment and help them as they move towards a single pane of glass view of the enterprise that all organizations are looking to achieve. Next was a single point of control for the endpoints from the management console. Eric or his team could make changes to the whitelist on all devices in one place, but they still had the ability to go to each machine if needed and use that local graphical user interface. Finally, as I mentioned, any questions Redner's had were handled quickly by the support team. To summarize, Redner's market have already deployed an app whitelisting solution to address the risk of processes on their POS terminals. Though a lack of scalability and usability led them to seek alternate options. Savant, now Digital Guardian app whitelisting, demonstrated to them how an app whitelisting can scale to support a larger and geographically dispersed customer base while still delivering ease of use and ease of management. The results to Redner's included an ability to retune their AV while relying on the app whitelisting for malware protection, to eliminate delays to checkpoint, a secure and streamlined way to update software while keeping the whitelist protection active, and finally ensuring their USB ports are not an attack vector. All of these add up to supporting PCI compliance for Redner's and Eric's team.
Great, thank you, Bill. At this point, we're going to take a brief pause from the content to handle a few of the questions that came up for Eric during the session so far. Eric is joined to handle these questions and add any additional commentary to the session. So with that, we'll start with the following question to Eric. What specific PCI requirements does application whitelisting fulfill for you, and how do you use it in your audits?
Good morning. As you heard earlier, it helps us with our file integrity monitoring requirements, as well as our updating and patching requirements. We do patch. We're not overly aggressive due to not wanting to break our point-of-sale application. Savant allows us a little more time to test our updates out in-house, since it locks down the system and doesn't allow anything new to run, so an exploit can't run due to the software.
Great, thanks, Eric. We have another question that came up for you. What do you use to distribute the application whitelisting software to the POS terminals?
Well, the first few locations we began the rollout with, we installed them individually as we installed the point-of-sale systems. I think we used Savant provisioning tool to create an MST file and put that into a batch file, so it's a single-click install. And we would let the install run and learn the new system for a few minutes. But nowadays, we have it built into our image for the registers, so it's pretty easy to install.
Great.
And it automatically joins the controller.
Okay. I'm going to add another polling question here. So what are the biggest challenges you face to deploy application whitelisting? The options are budget, political, finding the right technical solution, finding the time or people to deploy, or finding the time and people to manage.
I think it's budget for us and also the management piece. It's so nice to have centralized management, centralized control, able to do everything from one screen.
Great, thank you. Okay. At this point, we're going to go into a brief overview of who Digital Guardian is and the Digital Guardian application whitelisting solution, including how it is different. After that, we'll open the lines back up to further questions.
All right, so Digital Guardian, as some of you may know, was founded in 2003, originally as Vertisys. It's really designed to protect organizations from IP from insider threats. Since 2010, the company has been upper right of the Gartner DLP Magic Quadrant. Digital Guardian has also been a visionary quadrant for mobile security since 2012. We've over 20 registered patents, headquartered in Waltham, and deployed in over 54 countries. Digital Guardian's install base exceeds 2 million agents, covering everything from mid-market to 300 plus corporations inside the Global 2000. We believe in persistent data protection, including coverage of Windows, Mac, and Linux, protecting you whether you are offline or in a virtual environment as the policy persists wherever your device may travel. A little more about the organization. So 52 million terabytes of sensitive data is protected daily by Digital Guardian. We have the visibility, deep visibility into organizations' sensitive data and are able to scan this and see what's in there to help keep your sensitive information stay within your organization. As I mentioned, over 2 million agents deployed worldwide, and more than 250 of the largest brands in the world rely on Digital Guardian to protect them. 54 countries, 300,000, our largest customer has 300,000 agents. We have 7 of the 10 top patent holders rely on Digital Guardian to protect their organizations, and 5 of the top 10 auto companies also use Digital Guardian to protect their intellectual property. One of our larger installs has 250,000 employees using a single management server. We protect data across a variety of industries, including energy, financial services, government, technology, healthcare, manufacturing, along with a host of others. Next, I'm going to give a quick overview of the Digital Guardian app whitelisting solution. Here's a high-level view of the architecture. When the agent is deployed, it indexes the machine looking for all apps and .exe files to build the initial whitelist. This list is stored and encrypted locally and is unique to each machine. When a user attempts to install or launch an application or an installer tries to update software, the whitelist is consulted before anything can happen. If the process is on the list, like a trusted installer or a business-critical application, such as those required to process transaction on the POS terminals, process is allowed. If, on the other hand, this application is not on the list, the launch will be blocked. Thus far today, I focused on the POS terminals, but the solution works just as well on the endpoint and servers. Anywhere you need to make a conscious and enforceable decision around what apps can and cannot run in your environment. Next, I'll go over briefly Digital Guardian app whitelisting and how our solution is different. First, more secure because the whitelist is stored locally and protected from all access. Only Digital Guardian whitelisting uses a patented encrypted whitelist at each endpoint. The whitelist is always stored locally, encrypted, and protected from all access at that endpoint. Stops proliferation and potential compromise to endpoints. Because each whitelist is unique to that machine, if one whitelist is to be compromised or someone is to allow a rogue process, it does not propagate throughout the network. Each machine has their own specific whitelist. Next is strong security because there's no single point of failure. While we have a centralized management console, each one of those endpoints is really where the whitelist lives. It does not refer back to that centralized console. It looks to the local machine for the actual application whitelisting decision. Thus, compromise with that machine cannot go out throughout the network. Next is that greater flexibility through a complete client user interface. As I mentioned, and Eric mentioned as well, there is a centralized console that allows management from one location, but each one of the endpoint machines does have a local user interface that can allow for either a user, if the organization allows it, to make changes to their whitelist, or an admin can make those changes out at the endpoint as well. And finally, intelligent change management. I mentioned the concept of the trusted installers. Everyone knows how often files get patched out there, how often software gets updated. Having the ability to assign a trusted status to an installer ensures that during an install, your whitelisting process, your whitelisting software maintains that protection throughout those devices while those changes happen on the endpoint. A couple more documents here for more information if you're interested. Both of these are available on the Attachments tab in the webinar. First is a Digital Guardian application whitelisting overview, and second, a little more detailed white paper focused around how to meet and maintain 4 of the most difficult PCI requirements with app whitelisting. It goes into a little more detail about what I mentioned with some of those challenges for PCI and getting them to maintain your compliance there. So with that, I think we're going to go to the next section with some questions here. If we have some more questions from the audience, whether they're for Eric or they're for me regarding the Digital Guardian solution. So, anyone want to go through the questions, please?
Sure. Thank you for the overview, Bill. Going to give another moment for additional questions. Okay, so the first question we have is for Eric. What metrics do you track around application whitelisting?
We look for several things. We like to look for lockdown denials to see if we missed an update or a problem file that's out in our environment. And it's most likely something that can be fixed by a new filter set. We look for noisy systems to see if there's a particular problem with a system. Maybe something's not working. Maybe the Savant has not updated properly. We use device control to lock out USB devices, and sometimes we'll get, even though it's against our policy, somebody will find an open USB port and plug a cell phone or something in to charge. And it's kind of nice. We get those alerts immediately and give the store a call to see what's going on. The one I like the most probably is the see which system is online or the last time it talked to the SEMS. It kind of lets you know if there's a system out there that's either off the network or if it's just turned off. We handle all the maintenance for our registers, so it kind of helps us with those 4 o'clock on a Friday calls that there's a problem with a register that has been down all week. I try and question that if it happens middle of the week, see what's going on. That's the one I like the most.
Great, thanks, Eric. Next question that came up is for Bill. What happens if the whitelist becomes compromised?
Sure. So one of the things that's somewhat unique about the solution we have there is, let's assume the whitelist does compromise on one of the machines there. As I mentioned, each one of these machines maintains its own individual unique whitelist. So if something happens to that one whitelist, that malware, let's say, gets on there, it cannot propagate throughout the network. It gets onto that one machine, and it's really that attack is stopped right there. It may get hold there, but it then tries to go to the next machine. That same piece of code, before it is able to execute on the other machine, the machine will look to the application whitelist that is unique to it and say, this is not part of my list here. It is not allowed to run on the machine as well. So this gives it somewhat of an additional level of security out there because, again, that centralized whitelist concept doesn't really exist. You don't have that single point of potential failure out there that can cause a system-wide breach of your organization.
Okay, great. The next question is for Eric. Since the installation of Digital Guardian application whitelisting, has Redner stopped any attacks that without the protection would have crippled or compromised their systems?
We have not had any problems. Hopefully there's nothing in our environment. Most that we see are just updates that are having trouble installing for software. So somebody tries to run, or techs try and run software out there without putting the system in learn mode, even though it's authorized. But no, nothing major.
Okay, thank you. We have another question for Bill. What if I whitelist something by mistake?
Yeah, sure. So there's a couple ways that Savant or Digital Guardian can be deployed. One of them would allow the end user some ability to have localized control there, and there can be that ability to whitelist something by mistake out there. Again, the issue comes if someone whitelists something that's unintentionally malicious there, that's on their machine. That application, again, is allowed only on that single machine and cannot propagate throughout the network there. So if someone were to whitelist a media application, which you don't want on there, through the management console, you'll have visibility to that application, but it's not going to go out to other applications, to other terminals out there. So there is some level of protection that is afforded by the Digital Guardian solution.
Great, thank you. So for any additional questions that come up that we don't get to, we'll be sure to follow up with you individually via email after the presentation. We're coming to the end of our time slot here, but before we end today, I want to get a quick promotion for our next webinar. We'll be hosting Garrett Becker from 451 Research to give his views on the DLP market, including why this solution has reemerged as one of the top IT budget items for the next 12 months, ranking number 2 on their list. Please join us on October 29th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time for the session, and you can register for this webinar on our Bright Talk channel. This concludes our webinar today. I hope you enjoyed the topic and learned how application whitelisting from Digital Guardian can be an integral part of protecting your POS environment, as well as your desktop. Thank you, and thank you to both presenters, and enjoy the rest of your day.